Hi, my name's Jim Hemphill. I'm a features writer for IndieWire, and I'm thrilled to welcome you to the Craft Roundtable for Cinematography. Very excited. I've got cinematographers of some of my favorite movies of the year here. We've got Adolpho Veloso, who shot Train Dreams, Michael Bauman from One Battle After Another, William Rexer from The Testament of Anne Lee, and Malik Hassan Sayeed, who shot After the Hunt. So welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You know, I was looking at these movies and they're all so different, but one of the things they all have in common is they're all very character driven, and in all of them you find like a great visual language for expressing character. And I'm curious, for example, Adolfo, what kinds of conversations did you have with the director about finding a visual language to sort of express the main character's state of mind? Because he doesn't talk very much. It's a very, very internal movie.
Yeah, we really wanted it to feel like you're watching someone's memories, almost like you found that box full of pictures and you're trying to piece those pictures together and they're kind of out of order and you don't know exactly if that's what actually happened or if they just posed for that picture. The same way you have your own memories that you weren't sure if that's what really happened or if you just remember it that way. So we really talked a lot about it, and then we came to the aspect ratio, shooting 3:2, which is basically still images aspect ratio. So we thought that maybe that could connect to the audience in a way that it feels like you're watching your own pictures on your phone or your old family photos. We also talk a lot about natural light and how to make it feel, even though it's a period piece, connectable to the audience.
It's all going by so fast.
Bye-bye.
Well, what you're saying about a period piece and still having it be immediate leads me to a question for you, William, because Testament of Anne Lee, I feel like it's kind of an incredible movie in that it feels like you're just dropped in the middle of this world where there were no cameras and there was no technology, and you're somehow sort of catching it on the fly. So you have that same combination of it being period accurate but immediate, and I'm wondering if that was something that was important to you and that you discussed with the director.
The camera is an active participant. The camera really is a believer in Anne and a follower. So it's constantly engaging, and that's what being really present, and that was really important to us. And Mona and I talked about that in terms of the overall look. We didn't want it to ever feel like a television show or a contemporary movie. So we looked at Baroque paintings, and we looked at stuff that's outside of that world and outside of normal cinema, and used that as sort of our references. So the combination of the Baroque style and the immediacy of being an active participant. Those are the two things we talked about wanting to play with.
Well, now speaking of visual references, Malik, I'm curious to hear what kinds of conversations you had with Luca on After the Hunt about visual references and influences, because I know both of you guys, I know from having talked to you before, are like super cinephiles and probably have a lot of common references in terms of the movies you love. So what were some of the films and filmmakers that you were talking about with him that you saw as possible inspiration or reference points for After?
Well, there were two references that he gave me, which I was very excited about. I mean, the whole movie's about restraint, and I think that the references themselves were restrained. And it's Sven Nykvist and Ingmar Bergman, 1961 to 1972, and then Gordon Willis, 1977 and 1988. And we just functioned inside of that space. So wanted the film to feel like it came out of the period of Gordon Willis, but with the relationship that is created by way of the mise-en-scene with Ingmar Bergman and Sven Nykvist, because it's a lot about faces and kind of the emotional ambiguity that's created, and kind of like of emotional voyeurism, like that we're just there as we're taking this ride with these characters. So it really became an exercise in that. And Gordon Willis has always been a North Star for me, so that was okay. I love that I get to revisit Gordon Willis. Yes, yeah. And of course Harris is Gordon Willis adjacent. You know what I mean? Like, so it was Harris and Gordon Willis for me, and then Sven Nykvist, I was able to take a deeper dive on him. I mean, he's always in the pantheon, but I spent more time with him and Ingmar Bergman, and it was a really exciting journey to kind of spend more time and understand their relationship and their development. Yeah, so it was the silence and persona were probably the two seminal pieces with them that connect to our film.
Yeah, I'm not surprised to hear you say that about Ingmar Bergman and Sven Nykvist because I'm a huge Bergman fan, and that was when I saw your movie, I did think a lot about, in terms of the close-ups and the faces, there was something very reminiscent. The power of it was very similar to Bergman. And also, somebody else I thought about watching the movie was, and maybe it's just the academic setting, made me think about Virginia Woolf, but also
yes.
Carnal Knowledge. And it just was interesting because obviously Julia Roberts worked with Mike Nichols, and there's this
Yes.
whole sort of Mike Nichols inflected thing in the visual language
Yes,
too.
he did. That wasn't mentioned, but I know that the writer Nora, those were references for her as she was writing the script.
It's the right thing to do, isn't it? To tell someone and, give in your history.
What does that mean, my history?
Now, Michael, you've been working with Paul Thomas Anderson on a few films now. With this one, I mean, I don't even know where you get started. It's such a epic undertaking. What are the first conversations he has with you? I mean, I know he's been in some way or another thinking about and writing this movie for decades. So when did you first hear about it, and what did he first tell you?
I think it was really it kind of comes out in drips and drabs. He started talking a bit about it around when we were even doing Licorice Pizza, of just this is kind of what, it wasn't a lot of details, but kind of working with him and you're seeing some of the source material he's using and you can kind of see which direction he's going, and so he's just piles of books and other references that were kind of a lot of the building blocks for the film. When we got into really talking more visuals about it, it was a lot about 70s cinema. It was a lot about French Connection. That was definitely our guiding light. And Last Detail, a lot of these kind of movies of that period and that grittiness of what that energy. It wasn't just so much the look, but it was just the energy of some of those movies, especially French Connection and trying to capture moments as they happened. And that was really a lot of kind of where the conversation started. And then we just did a lot of tests just to see with this division format how we could achieve some of those goals and what worked, what didn't. And that's the great thing about testing. You can fall on your face and good things come from that.
Well, you get at something that I love about that movie. It feels like you're catching life on the fly, but there's also a very precise visual design to everything. And I'm curious to hear from all of you about how you kind of navigate that balance. Where's the line between how much you come in with a preset plan and how much you leave yourself open to responding on the day and to things that might come up in the moment?
There was a lot of okay, this is the space we're going to be in. And it was more about lighting spaces and then picking up the moments as they'd happen. Because a lot of what was going on with the casting too in the film was there was a lot of folks in there who were not actors, or didn't come from the kind of background that a lot of the principals did. There were unique qualities about them that you'd want to make sure you could capture, and that just involved okay, let's get an environment where we're lighting a space and they can interact and capture that kind of natural energy that was going on. And so that for us was a lot of just being open enough in on how we were approaching it to roll with whatever was going to come down the pipe.
We were sort of the opposite because we only had 34 days to accomplish everything. So there's not a frame that we hadn't pre-visualized with Artemis going through and saying, okay, this is what our world's going to be. But we lit very similarly, where we lit environmentally and source motivated by candles or daylight or moonlight. So it gives that feeling of that, but everything was precise. We knew every one of the dance sequences, everything was completely planned out in advance.
Did you storyboard or?
We didn't storyboard. We really did it with Artemis. We did a shot list in New York, and all the dances we would go and rehearse in New York and plan them. And then every location scout we would go, and Mona would play all the parts, and I would really take that frame because we knew on the day, 30 some odd days in 4 countries, there wasn't time to sort of wing it.
Yeah. Well, we did the opposite. Well, similarly to lighting the rooms, I love when Harris said, when someone says something that concretizes an idea that you have, that is the truth when he says he lights the room, which I love. That's how we approach it because Luca doesn't storyboard, he doesn't shot list, and he'll change day to day. And so the tech scout was complete. We didn't shoot a single thing we shot on the tech scout. But one great thing about Luca, which is he's at mastery, I think flow state level, because he edits and he shoots the edit. He doesn't cover anything. He shoots the edit. He's a one take guy, and we have amazing actors who nail. Michael and Julia, killed it on one take. Andrew would want a second take or third take, and he would have to catch up. I felt it was like Kyrie, you know, and like a young phenom, you know what I mean? Like Kyrie's going in slow motion, and the phenom just got to keep up, you know? So when we got there in the morning, he would ask for the finder, and we just had to be ready and reactive to what, you know, which way he wanted to go. And when I was younger, it would have been daunting, but I actually found it very refreshing, especially coming out of doing a lot of commercials where the storyboards just get stale, and you know, and it's just, I think just keeping it alive, like just being reactive to the moment, because he was reacting to the performances. He was just intuitively reacting to what the performance and the rehearsal was giving him, and then we had to follow him in that way. And so it was a fun exercise to do it like that.
The film doesn't feel that way. The film feels.
It feels very. Someone said it feels. A really good friend of mine who knows me intimately, creatively, says it was different from me. He said it felt brutalist, but I think it's just where we are in our evolution that it feels like that. But we just played in the moment, which was fun. It was a fun exercise, you know.
Yeah, ours was a bit of both. I think we planned a lot when we created a lot of rules, visual language rules, depending on the time of his life he was going through. So we knew a few things in advance, and we had to plan a lot because we were using only natural light. So we actually had to plan a lot with all departments to be able to be in the right places at the right time, but also always with our eyes open to whatever was happening. And because we were working that way on actual locations, the sets were all built on location, we had planned something to be inside, and then just we would look outside, oh my God, look at that. It's something amazing is happening outside, or even like the scene is not working here. Let's just go outside and see if that works better. So we had a lot of improvisation on that part too, like just not only within the spaces, but also within the action. Like the actors would always bring ideas, and Clint, I think I learned that a lot with him. Like he's always really sure of what he wants, but he's so open, and he's always kind of embracing and encouraging people to bring something different. We constantly, whenever like shooting with kids especially, or animals, we would just embrace what they gave us. So if the scene was supposed to be the kid is happy or whatever, and then the baby just started crying, okay, that's the scene now. Let's make it work. So it was a bit of planning a lot to be able to improvise. Yeah.
But I guess it's because you're on location, you have to plan.
Totally.
Yeah, and we were on stage, so I guess that makes a big difference, you know, to be able to do that. And maybe that's why he wanted to shoot on stage.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could control what time of day,
Exactly.
weather.
Exactly.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, we couldn't, but because we didn't have lights, that gave us also the flexibility to move around.
Right.
Because then you didn't have like a whole set of lights outside or
Yeah.
That's great. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's great.
That's crazy.
it's cool.
Well, what you were saying about having to be in close collaboration with other departments, I mean, that's something else that struck me about all of these movies, is they all feel like movies where all the departments were in a very harmonious relationship. Like the cinematography, the production design, the costumes are all very, very integrated. I was wondering if you could all talk a little bit about collaborating with the other department heads.
We worked as a team. We lived together in Hungary. You know, we would have meals and be looking at swatches together at 11 o'clock at night. We did the old style of going every night and watching dailies together even too. So
Incredible.
we would have dinner, even if it was 11 o'clock at night, and the lab would stay open for us and project our dailies, and we would drink wine, look at things that are coming up in 2 weeks. So
That's beautiful.
There was so much planning and living together and sharing, and our costume designer, our production designer, myself, and Mona, it was an endless dialogue, and it really worked out really well because of that. There was never any surprise where you've got somebody in blue against a blue wall, there was none of that type of thing. I do think that all of our projects had incredible leadership, you know, and Mona's leadership was insane. She just led with so much passion and so much endless energy that it's infectious. And I'm sure PT is the same way. And I mean, it's just like, I think we all benefited from that type of leadership, which then takes all the departments and truly makes it infectious, you know.
I think the way you just said, I was going to say we also did film dailies every day, and because the communication was challenging at times because we were in so many different cities, and a lot of times like Flo, who's the production designer, would be like at the other end of the state or in El Paso, and we're stuck in Eureka or some other place. But what was very unifying for everybody was that Paul's a huge fan of always watching film dailies, and that included. So they had to set up a projection system that would just cart around, the different hotels we were all staying at, because we were all kind of like in the similar vein. Everyone was all together. 2 Super 35 projectors and a VistaVision projector, and you're just watching that every night. But it's really great for just everybody taking a breather, looking at the footage. And it took a couple days from when we'd shoot it to when we'd see it. So that was really a great opportunity for everyone just to kind of reflect on the work and just, get some distance from it, but then just keep soldiering on.
Do you guys feel bad watching dailies? Because for me, it's so nerve-wracking. I feel like everybody's judging our work because everybody's seen everybody else's work, but then suddenly this is a time for people to judge our work, and you're just there like hoping that people don't.
I mean, what's great about like usually when Paul sets up a dailies room, there's very specific requirements. One of it includes an incredible bar, so that's always a good way to set the tone. But then also, he's always playing with the music. So like on this, Johnny Greenwood is sending score ideas over, and so he'd be playing that at times and seeing how that fits with
That's
things.
incredible.
And so you'd be in there, and it was never like, all right, just roll it and we'll just be quiet. It was always like there's something cranking, some of the needle drop tracks that he wanted to put in. He would play around with that, and so it's kind of like almost like a live DJ session going on, as you're watching the footage, which is loosens the mood a bit,
We had that both on set. Daniel Bloomberg, our composer, was on set playing even for dramatic scenes while we're rehearsing.
Oh, really?
What was going to become the story.
That's amazing.
So everybody's getting in that mind. And
it's like Dogma 95.
It was really fantastic. He's in the movie as an actor as well. So but he's always sitting there with a keyboard playing. And then in dailies, the same thing. He would be up there and he'd be playing. So it's, we are circus freaks, and this when the circus is when you have a good ringmaster.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
What speaking, I actually have a question about the scene with Benicio del Toro when they're going through the space. Did you guys have the music, because the music is so
that roof part?
At least the score was so harmonious with like the what's happening in the scene.
Yeah.
Did you guys have it beforehand, or you scored it later?
I think he definitely has it when we're watching dailies, and obviously they're always communicating and adding this and that. But it was just kind of like a sense of, even before we started, he had a playlist he shared, and it was just like different mood and tone of kind of the energy of what. So even as you're reading the script, you're just kind of listening to stuff that's kind of in that mindset. But yeah, that scene was an interesting one, because that was like, so they shot that in El Paso on the second floor of an abandoned building. And the reason we were there is because we wanted to look out these windows and be able to tie in the exterior and the interior around the second floor. So that entire set had, Flo designed it, multiple apartments, the hallway, all that, but it was all assembled, and they had to build it in LA, stand it up, and then ship it out to El Paso. And Andrew Kahn, the art director, because it was a historic building, didn't know if he could remove the windows, so he had two guys go to Home Depot and cut a 4-foot by 9-foot section of wood and see if they could navigate it up the stairs, so he knew how big the set pieces could be built, so he could definitely assemble it on site. Yeah. And then Anthony Carlino, the set decorator, was like, who I've done a bunch of movies with, and is just very great collaborative partner, as we all know, as a cinematographer, having set deck and all those guys, really, that whole team is always your best friend. And he was like, I really want to have this vibe. I don't want to bring a lot of stuff from, outside of the environment in El Paso. So he literally dressed most of it just off of stuff he got on Facebook Marketplace and flea markets and stuff in the neighborhood, because he just wanted all that, all those great textures that we all get when those spaces.
I love that sequence.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah.
And the music, the score is incredible.
The Benicio sections is just, and the integration of all the characters working in the different the jails and the restaurants. It's just brilliant.
Yeah. And it was always this mix of like actors, professional actors, and folks who are non-professional. Like, for example, in the jail, when he's getting interviewed by the woman, and she's like, did you take your diabetes medication? No. And she just worked there. She wasn't, and it was just like, she just started hitting it out of the park. And it was like, there was a lot of that in the film. Even the scene where when Avante, the bounty hunter, takes Willa to the camp to drop her off, and the guy who's who's all tatted out, who's there, he had to cast somebody else. That guy drove the picture car vehicle and had been with us for the whole thing. And then Paul's like, you know what, I think you'd be better. And the guy's like, wait a minute, what? You want me to act? And I just remember the day he started, he was just like, okay, it's going to be fine, man. It's going to be fine. Just do it. And, you know, and that guy, and then that night, we finished shooting. And then he had to drive, because we're in the middle of nowhere, he had to drive the picture car vehicle, load it up, and drive it back.
That's so funny because that guy. When I saw the movie, I was thinking like, where did Paul Thomas Anderson find this guy? He's great. Like, why haven't I seen him before and anything?
Yeah.
But that leads to another question I have for all of you, which is sort of getting back to what I was saying about how these movies are all very character driven. They all have just fantastic performances, and I'm wondering for all of you how you see your role in terms of creating an environment on set that's going to get the most out of the actors or make them the most comfortable. Like, is that something that you guys think about and consider, or is it like, no, that's the director's job?
For me, 100%. Like, this is really scary for me. Like, being in front of the camera is just like, I don't understand how they do it. So I'm always trying to make it easier on them, even though they might not find it hard because they do their jobs amazingly. But I always imagine that if I was in that spot, I would rather have a smaller footprint around me. So I'm always trying to work in a way that I don't have a bunch of stuff around them, have a kind of an empty set somehow. It's just a camera and me there sometimes. I think it's one of the good things about working with natural light. You don't have a lot of stands around them. They are like, on our movie, they're pretending they are living in 1920s and they are around an actual campfire, not around LED lights that are flickering like a campfire. And also to allow them some flexibility. Clint is a director that really loves to improvise and allow them to improvise. So I feel like it kind of all goes the same route. And that was amazing because so many, I think, beautiful moments in the movie came from these little pieces that we just improvised. So I feel like for me, just because of the way I react to being in front of the camera, I'm always trying to avoid that for them too.
I think we all want to just work in a good energy space, and not have it be toxic. For me, it's always important for the energy around me and what I can manage to be good, and my team, like, we function in an unspoken way. Because I think it always starts at the top, and it was important from Julia from the beginning. She had us come to her house to do the hair and makeup test, come to San Francisco. We rented out a space, and they did the rehearsals at the same time with the actors, and she cooked and had everybody on the couches with her dogs. And Andrew said it later, like, that set the tone for the energy on set. And she's very maternal and very nurturing, and she created a nurturing space because they knew they were gonna have tough material to engage between actors, and it was infectious with us. And so I feel like it created a really good vibe and energy on set. And to me, that's, in my opinion, those things get recorded on film. Like, the energy of the space gets recorded on the film. The space itself, like, I think it was one of Ozu's cinematographers believed that whoever touched the camera, because it's metal, because film is metal, their energy gets on the film. But I just really do feel like the energy gets recorded. And so we had that on in our space. And it allowed us to be with Luca, to be able to channel in the moment, to like react creatively, we needed that. We needed to be free. By way of the producers, which I have to give them credit, they allowed us, they gave us a space to do that, so we can say, okay, this is how I'm reacting to this right now, and we just have to do it, even if it meant we take a little longer to do it, to honor the truth of the moment.
I think we, as the cinematographers, have a huge responsibility in setting that. Yeah. And creating a focus and creating that space that you're talking about, yeah. And if we're not prepared, if we're haphazard, if we're coming in with bad energy or bad mood or bringing stuff to it, or if we employ people around us who are doing that, yes, and don't stop it early, yes, it really can contaminate a set very, very quickly. Absolutely. And we've been, with Ann Lee, I was blessed with both Mona and Amanda. I mean, Amanda, after, a dance sequence, the one where she's giving birth, 9, 10 takes of that, and she's exhausted, and we say, we need one more. And then she turns to us and says, okay, but you have to do this for me as a favor. And she whispers in my ear. I go talk to the sound recordist. She does one more of these takes, and this is an intense dance sequence. And there's about 60 other people dancing in there. And it's hungry, and it's like 100 degrees in the space. finish, and all of a sudden this dance party music comes on. That's what she wanted, and she turns the whole thing into a dance party.
Incredible.
And gets now for 20 minutes has every crew member out there dancing, and she's dancing with everybody. But that's the type of thing. It's like setting. She knew that all those other dancers needed a release.
Yeah.
She needed a release. The crew needed to be rewarded.
That's incredible.
And that type of leadership, you know, and setting energy.
Yeah.
And then we have the responsibility to protect that.
Yes,
you know?
absolutely.
And,
Absolutely. Yeah, love it. Love that.
No, totally. I think it is about that, just like creating a space that people can feel comfortable to work in. I mean, and it does start with the top, just like you said about Julia. I mean, Leo was like, on this thing, he was, you know, Paul really wanted it to be like an indie movie. But, you know, of course, he didn't really write that kind of a film. So it's like, but he was, I mean, he was all about like, again, I think it's because he felt if you bring in the machinery of like what that kind of production would be, it's not going to be the energy that he's looking for. And I mean, he even came to me at one point and he was like, hey, what do you think? He goes on eBay and he buys 3 of those little Todalite kits. And he's like, hey, what do you think if we lit the movie with this? And I'm like, you know, and I'm like, okay, so what's he saying by this? You know, because obviously, you know, that stuff was like, I mean, we've all worked with that stuff and it's like, you know, whoa. And the cast was on board with it. I mean, like, you know, normally it's like some of the caliber of the stars would be like a big footprint. And you know, everyone was like, we're in small trucks, you know, the cast was like in little like vans, Sprinter vans, and they just hang out and be ready. I mean, I can't, the number of times I walked by Sean Penn asleep in his truck with his feet up on the thing was like no big deal. And that's how he would just hang and then he'd just be ready and they'd just pop out and do it. And that kind of allowed us to maintain that kind of energy. And I think when it starts from there and then it just kind of, like you said, it infuses into the set and everybody just rolls with it.
Yeah.
How do you feel that the VistaVision affected that in terms of the noise? And
Yeah, that was interesting. I mean, you know, look, I mean, that's the thing. You're trying to take this format that has its own limitations, I guess, or not limitations, just you know, peculiarities to it. And the noise is a big thing. And it was like, definitely when we did tests at first, it was like, all of us were like, whoa. Certainly some scenes in the film that we shot Super 35, and that was mainly because in Vista, because you're using twice as much film, you only got 4 minutes to take, and a lot of it was also about supporting the improvisation that was happening. And so there are certain scenes that we'd roll Super 35 because you could get an 11-minute take out of a mag, which was really critical for some of the performances. But yeah, so it, you know, and he doesn't shoot stage really, so Paul doesn't like stages, he likes practical locations, so trying to jam the camera in some of these things, it was an adjustment, I'll put it that way. I mean, the thing is noisy.
and you shot dialogues always with that camera in general?
Sometimes we do it with both systems, depending on what it was. Yeah, I was just trying to find the balance of what would work, and then also working with the post-sound guys on like what they could get away with, because they can, you know, as we all know, they can perform some incredible magic, you know.
But
so.
you didn't sacrifice energy or movement in that movie with the bulky camera. You still have, you know, it really feels free.
Yeah, I think it was just like to what you said earlier, just about building the right team. When you have a team that's down with the plan and is like, all right, let's do it, and open to it, because like, you know, the camera department was like, every other department was like, don't bring anything, except the camera truck was packed. Because, you know, you got all the film, the 2 camera systems, and he loves lenses. It's, you know, so you've got like ton of glass and all this, and it was just, yeah, it was a stressor for that department, you know.
I love a film where the system doesn't, you know, it's a robust system, but it doesn't anchor the feel of the movie. Yeah. When I saw The Insider, I was like, it was like all handheld, anamorphic, and it just felt like the cameras felt free, you know. And it's similar to your movie. I didn't feel the weight of the system at all.
Yeah, and I think we carried with us a print of the movie I just read, Gene Hackman movie.
French Connection.
French Connection. Thank you.
Yeah.
Total. That's what happens to wrap at 1 a.m. But we carried that with us, a print of French Connection, so we could actually get in there and watch it periodically during dailies, because it would be like on a weekend when everybody's kind of sitting around. Yeah. And it was really just to make sure that, like you just said, because the weight of everything starts to creep in, and then it starts to affect, you know, and there's definitely moments where he's like, this is getting too polished. This is feeling too right. We gotta muck it up a bit, and you know. And so it was not uncommon for him to be like, hey, you know, talking to the grips when they're rigging a car, loosen this up a bit or something, or just embracing all that rawness was really critical.
Well, that car chase sequence where you're going on the longer lens is just reinventing a chase sequence. It's really beautiful.
It felt Hitchcock, very Hitchcock to me. Was there a Hitchcock reference at all to that?
It was, most of the references were that a lot of that scene in Under the Subway and French Connection of like it's that energy of like let's go.
Yeah.
And I think what really works so well with that is the score. I mean, to me, that's like what you say about Hitchcock when you talk about his work with Bernard Herrmann and the score and how those work, and what with the cut and how it worked with Johnny's score. It really like. There's so many great moments, especially when like she's driving and she doesn't see anything behind it. It's just like there's like a wood block going, and all of a sudden you see the car come over the hill, and then the drums kick back in, and it's a really good interplay between the two as far as building tension.
Yeah. It's funny that you bring up Hitchcock, because I actually thought about Hitchcock watching your movie. I actually thought After the Hunt felt very Hitchcock.
Yeah. The thing about Luca that's really amazing, and maybe one of the reasons I wanted to work with him, because I knew I could learn from him. For one, I realized that.
Yeah.
And to learn that he didn't go to film school to learn filmmaking. He went and studied film theory and art history. And then he was a critic for several years before he was a filmmaker. So he's a massive cinephile and film student. And I feel like one of his superpowers, he's a master of film grammar. And so his cinematic heroes, he is very efficient at understanding their film grammar, and Hitchcock is one of them. The commercial we did a commercial prior to us doing this film, and that was the first thing we worked on. It was Hitchcock, specifically Hitchcock influence, and I could see how nuanced he was at understanding Hitchcock's mise en scene. And so I don't think that he could function outside of that, even though it was Bergman, you know what I mean, and Finn Nyquist. I think that Hitchcock is so important to him that it just seeps in.
It's in the DNA.
It's in the DNA, yeah.
And going back to the thing about collaborating with other department heads, I wanted to ask you, Malik, about your collaboration with the production designer, because probably the highest compliment I can pay your production designer is I watched After the Hunt and just assumed you guys shot that all at Yale. Yeah. And then you're saying, no, you're shooting in England. So talk a little bit about collaborating with the production designer on recreating Yale in England.
Yeah, I'm gonna add one other person, is the visual effects, because everything was blue screen and green screen. And that was the most nerve-wracking part of the work, because we don't see what it is, and we won't know what it is, and we just have to trust, and we were on a panel, and he just said something I didn't know when we were in Venice. Someone came to him and asked him at the end of the movie, like, so what was your role in the movie? So I was a visual effects supervisor. He said, well, there were no visual effects in the movie. And he was like,
Then they did their job amazing.
Yes, and he was like, that's the biggest compliment I could get.
I'll never tell.
Yeah. And Fabio Chirito, he was incredible, and Stefano Baizzi. Walter Murch, I read something after we did the film where Walter Murch talks about harmonics, because he's the great editor of Apocalypse Now, Godfather. So he's a sound designer and editor. So he talked about so he can merge the two. And conceptually, he was talking about this thing that he recognized in filmmaking, where it's not just sound harmonics, but the harmony of the departments coming together to create a sound in what the final piece is. And that doesn't always happen. You realize it doesn't always happen. And I realized at the end of this, once I saw it, and I think that was like that reference really stood out to me, because I feel like there was incredible harmony with everyone involved in that. And then I realized, because we didn't watch dailies together, and we had some production meetings, but we didn't have a lot of production meetings together, because it was a fast pre-production. So leadership, because that came from Luca individually to all of us to guide us and to curate the craftspeople to create a singular sound, And Stefano is amazing. I love working with Stefano. He's great. That was only his third film. Wow. He comes from architecture. He's an architect, and it's an extension of Luca, because Luca, he's a Renaissance guy. He has all kinds of stuff going on. He also has an architecture firm that does, or design firm, the design studio, where they're doing a store. They did the Aesop store in London and Rome, beautiful, and they're doing all these projects together. And I think he brought him into the filmmaking side because they're such a great pairing that he said, okay, I want to now get this into my films. Italian, he doesn't speak English that well, but he's so sharp. I was like one of those where I knew whatever he said, pay attention, even if it takes him a minute to get it out, because he's going to help you.
Yeah.
And so we became really, really tight. I really, really enjoyed collaborating with, and VFX. I got to give it to Fabio because he killed it.
Yeah, well now, me looking at all of your movies, like I don't see a lot of visual effects. So for example, like that one, I'm totally surprised. I mean, did the other films, did you guys have any extensive visual effects or any kind of collaboration with visual effects, or was most of it done practically?
We did have, especially for the fire sequence, we couldn't obviously burn the forest down. We wouldn't. So that was our big VFX scene.
Well, the fire stuff is very seamless. So what kinds of how closely were you able to collaborate with the visual effects?
It was tricky because, as I was saying before, everything else in the movie is natural light, natural fire. So it was really a lot of testing to find the right lighting for that, so it doesn't pop out from the rest of the movie, because you're seeing there for like minutes and minutes in the movie, a real fire and a real flicker and the temperature. So when we got to that scene, we were okay, what do we do in terms of lighting to create a wall of fire? And then we came up with a rig that was a huge wall of par cans, actually, with different heights that would have different temperatures, almost to mimic what like fire does when it's a tall fire, how different the color is going to be from the bottom to the top. And then with a lot of conversations with VFX to, okay, how do we feel fires around them that were real, to kind of then add that VFX fire helped also, because then the whole flickering, and he could follow those other fires to get the same motion. And they did an amazing job. Like I was really happy and surprised actually when I saw it. Was okay, doesn't pop out, you know. So it was a lot of that, and then everything else they did on the movie was also almost like invisible, which I think it's the idea.
Was that a challenge to like, since you had so much natural light in the film, when you actually got to like, okay, now we're actually like lighting, I guess you would say. It was
totally. That was the big day for the guys. You know?
Yeah.
We were like,
what?
Okay, now let's go to work. But it was
but
cool,
not shattering
actually,
the artifice that you created.
It was cool actually, because Kevin Cook, our gaffer, was so collaborative on embracing the fire and using real fire. I think like some gaffers would probably be like, okay, I'm not doing anything here, I'm gonna go home, whatever. And he was like constantly with the SFX team and with the art department, making sure we had everything. Like we built some rigs, especially for the candle scenes, that I was calling them the 1920s sky panel, because it was just a reflective surface that would put a lot of candles inside, and we put diffusion in front of it, and it was basically the size of a sky panel, like an at-60. So we would use those for close-ups and faces inside. So it was a huge collaboration throughout the whole movie, but then for that one, it was a lot of testing, like just to make sure we had it, and everybody I think was confident after seeing the tests that we could pull it out. And it was fun, because then it was the big set piece.
That's great.
We did a lot of old school stuff. Lee took in London painting on glass plates to do our set extensions were all old style glass painting. So London, or Manchester, then New York, all that stuff, set extension was done by hand painting. Even the ship at sea, when it's in a storm, the ship is about twice the size of this cup in a bathtub, in Lee's bathtub in London. And then the sea is a plate. So visual effects mostly helped us with combining those type of images. Like we took 3 or 4 plates. We had lightning plate, we had a storm plate, we had a sea plate, and then we had a ship in a bathtub that was doing this, you know, real old school stuff. We tried to do as much old school as possible.
Yeah. Why was that?
Just because tonally the film, we didn't want it to feel too techy. Like even in the color grading, we never over massaged it. We didn't do a million windows. It's very much, we wanted it to feel.
I mean, it definitely will give you a different feel.
Authentic is not a great word, but it's the closest word I can come to.
I hear what you're saying.
And the old school techniques, again, just stand out against new visual effects.
Yeah.
Our fire we really built a massive building and burnt it to the ground, and there was a real fire. And again, all of our lighting had to be justified because we were 1740 to 1780 by candles or sun, or there was nothing else to justify our lighting.
Did you bring artificial lighting though?
We did bring artificial lighting, yeah.
What do you find was the best thing to mimic firelight?
Well, mostly like what you were doing. So like I had a potbelly stove that the door was cracked, and they tried LED, they tried everything else with all the other candles, and none of it looked great. So I put 12 candles inside the potbelly stove, which then worked really well because there was water on top, and it got so hot that the water was boiling and steaming during it. So yeah. But a lot of that using real candles to supplement. But then we would do, sky panel X's for separation, and we did, most of our sunlight was either 20K or 10K mole beams or something like that, So we did a lot of mixture of we used a lot, because we had to control the light.
Did you use moonlight too? Or?
Moonlight was mostly arrays of sky panel X's, which are terrific light. Yeah. We were able to get with sky panel X's, and then even some of the smaller fixtures mimic the candle light. With the new technology and with a good color temperature meter, you really are able to get in the zone. And shooting film, you really want to get in the zone because you're not going to see it for 2 days.
Yeah. Did you shoot the effects, any of the effects photography that, like, say, the boat in the bathtub, or did you have someone else do?
Lee did the boat portion. I did the other plate portion.
Okay,
So yeah.
That's great.
Yeah,
That's
it was
amazing.
really fun.
Yeah.
I mean, we did a lot of goofy things like that. Yeah.
It's beautiful. Paul's the same vein of like, and the reason I was asking is just because it's just like doing things, the value of doing things as practical as possible when when you have the space to explore that. And I mean, obviously you were on a tight schedule and stuff, and so you really had to commit, and you got to be shooting threes every time you're going out there, But it is interesting to, like you said, the quality you get and the approach you have to use, because it has to be precise. It's one of the things that's interesting always about shooting film. It's just like when that camera starts rolling, and I mean on Vista you could definitely know when it would start rolling, but it was just in general, it's just everyone's really on point because this is it. It's lights, camera, action. Let's go.
It's such a different set presence. Like, I was doing a film recently, not on film, and people are walking in front of the camera. People are, producers are setting up their computers in front of the camera. I'm like, what is going on? Film, the protocols are all there that prevent that, and the focus, and everyone knows the preciousness of it. It's back to what you're saying about like the sacredness of this space. You know.
Yeah, and how you can get great performances out of that because everyone is valuing what that is.
Ayo mentioned it in an interview we did, the actress Ayo Edebiri, about that it influenced the needs to function in a certain way, when they, camera turned on. Are you from? I just was curious. Are you from the camera side or lighting side, or both? Or you just came?
Both. I actually did a lot of everything before. Turning into a cinematographer. So I started as a PA and I did a bunch of everything. I went through all departments. So when I actually started shooting, I was already like shooting it.
Departments. How about you? You from the?
Really from camera, but my father was a theatrical producer. So and my mother had a theater company when I was a kid. So 13 years old, I was hanging Fresnels, cutting leads off of lights, rewiring. I did carbon arc follow spot.
Now you're talking.
For Cab Calloway.
Good.
Wow, this is great.
Yeah.
So I grew up in theater. And then did lighting design in theater. And then I got a job with National Geographic and became an assistant cameraman and then cameraman. Then came back to.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I know where you come from.
Yeah, we all know where you come from.
We both come from lighting.
Yeah.
And it's so funny. I didn't know who shot the movie, your movie. When I went to the theater, I hadn't looked. And then when I was there, I said, who is the cinema? Because the reason why I looked, I said, this guy looks like a lighting guy. That's what I said as soon as I saw the film. And then obviously we have a connection because we worked together, which we did unbeknownst to us. I realized yesterday that we had worked together years and years ago.
What was it?
On Doom Generation, Greg Araki's movie, 1994. Yeah, I gaffed it for Jim. I was a gaffer at the time for Jim Feely, and he was on the team.
Right, yeah, that's crazy times.
I love it.
Yeah.
90s indie cinema, man.
Yes,
Let's go.
exactly.
Well, I feel like actually, like I'm very nostalgic about. I feel like the '90s is just like the greatest decade ever for American movies. I think the breadth and depth of what was going on was incredible, and I feel like all these movies sort of come out of that tradition in a weird way.
70s for me. I think.
Yeah,
70s.
I know. I didn't feel that way about the '70s, but the '70s did not have the variety and breadth, in my opinion, that the '90s had. But to your point, Malik, about how things can kind of seep into the DNA of a movie, I think in Testament of An Lee, the fact that you guys did all of that stuff kind of old school and handmade, it fits the subject matter of that movie because it's about this kind of handmade culture. And I feel like somehow, I wasn't thinking about that as I was watching, but I think in terms of what I was saying earlier about how it feels like almost like a documentary, I think that's where some of that comes from. And it's the interesting thing about your movie too, both Train Dreams and Testament of An Lee, and I mean this as the highest compliment, they kind of reminded me of Terrence Malick, reminded me a lot of New World, both of those movies, which is another movie where I watched New World and I was like, how the hell does this guy make a movie that feels like it's a documentary? The point about how sometimes if you're doing CGI, it's almost like you're not getting the happy accidents.
Yeah. Right.
And I'm wondering how much does that play into your work? Like how many of the best things that come out of your work are things that are sort of unexpected?
Oh man, the list is long.
Yeah, it's one of the things why shooting film is so exciting because I'm always surprised when I get to dailies, no matter how much film I've shot and how I get in there and there's happy accidents always.
Go back to who you mentioned earlier, Harris Savitas. I came up mainly as a gaffer and through the lighting side, and I feel very fortunate because I get to see a lot of different cinematographers and their processes. And I got to do a movie called Bling Ring with Harris, and it was one of the last films he did, but it was so interesting to see somebody come in and where he's at a point in his career where obviously, the legend, amazing work, but he was just like, hey, whatever we're gonna do, let's just make mistakes. He was like, and just if it doesn't look good, just blame me. I'm like, dude, really? I just had never heard anybody talk like that.
That's amazing.
And he was just like, yeah, because let's just try different stuff. And he was like, we were shooting digital on that film, and he was, and everybody at that time was like, okay, we got the highest resolution. He's like, no, let's down res this thing. And he was like, all right, let's shoot it at half the resolution, see what that looks like. And it was just like so liberating to see someone who's just like, oh, we're just gonna throw it all at the wall. We can always make great images, no problem. Yeah, sure, set up the soft stuff, do all that. But he's like, let's just bang things together and see what happens. And it was like, all right, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I realized early on, that's what half of this is. It's just doing it to find it. I come up in New York, so we don't shoot stage. And I think we get good at finding the magic in reality. That's what we learn to do. And the accident, I mean, when we did Belly, I think half of Belly is like the things that we saved. Like let's save that. That's not what we intended to do, but we'll save it for, and we just, because literally and again, film, I feel, definitely affords us that because it's imperfect. Kind of like how we are. As humans, I think it more reflects us, with digital being an emulation of that. And I'm on a whole thing where now, like, that's the AI buster, is film, because it's going to more reflect us at our greatest and push us to become less mediocre and more embrace those kind of things, But it's all about that. And I love that story with Harris.
Oh, yeah. It was just like, just the fact that it was, and when things would happen, it'd be like, okay, that's not what was intended, but all right, let's amp that up a little bit and see what we can run. And then especially when the cast is on board and you've created, like, going back to the thing about creating an environment of a set where people can just roll with things, like, and what you said, you got 10 minutes before something's, all right, let's make something happen. And those moments just build those layers of the film.
You mentioned Terrence Malick, and I was watching an interview the other day with Chivo, and he was basically saying that when he came to shoot with Malick for the first time, he was ready to put a lot of light and to prepare and to come with this all this approach, his old approach. And basically he said that Malick came to him and said, I want you not to be afraid. I want you to maybe have some mistakes. And shoot when the light is changing, and shoot when you don't know what's gonna happen, and don't over prepare yourself. And Chivo said that he really transformed himself through that, and that changed completely the way he shot it. And basically because also Malik was telling him, don't be afraid. If there's anything that you are ashamed after, tell me. We're not going to use it, but let's try it. And I think that's liberating, knowing that you can try things. And if you are confident enough on your leader, on the director, to not use something that might be too wrong, or maybe even understand that that little mistake is actually good, then that's liberating. Then you're just like trying things without being completely afraid of anything.
I have a 25-second rule. Like when the director says cut, I tell everybody on set and everybody, you don't do anything roll that camera for 25 seconds.
Oh, that's interesting.
And what happens, so like if you've seen the trailer for Ann Lee, when Amanda's screaming up at and I'm overhead with a 65 mil lens on her, they said cut, and she just did this crazy scream just for the fun of it. And it's like the iconic image, because those are sometimes those mistakes or those things that happen are quite often some of the best things, you know?
Yeah, I think you realize that life is way bigger than us, that we can recreate it, so let's let it happen. Yeah. We got to give ourselves the opportunity to let it happen. I think in part of what we did in the film, with Luca having us not prepare, we had to lean into, like, similar to, I guess, I just realized what you said, Terrence Malick was saying to Chivo. It's like we just have to go with it. And I think that was liberating, to be able to just like go with whatever your implicit reaction is right now. Yeah. You know, and not over plan it, over prepare it. And I think it'd be a little bit more life will get into it, you know. Which I thought was it. So when I saw the trailer, it's amazing. I thought, you know, Tree of Life a little bit, and Revenant, which I realized, oh yeah, that's Chivo again.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, very beautiful.
Well, the work you guys have done is just really beautiful, and I really appreciate you taking the time to come talk with me. I got to ask one last question. I got to get in for you specifically, Michael, because with One Battle After Another, I saw the movie. I've seen the movie 6 times, each time in a different format. Each time in a different format, and some of those formats have different aspect ratios. And I'm watching, I'm thinking, like, how are you reconciling those in terms of composing when you know it's gonna be released in 1:4:3, in 1:5:0, in 1:8:5?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I mean, look, Colin Anderson, who's the operator, there's many times he would be on the eyepiece, and he's just like, and we didn't have enough time to like make there was no airy glow, there's no pan of glow, there's none of that. So he was just like trying to compose, and just really, he had I think 1:8:5 lines and 1:5:0, and just trying to make it happen within that. And it was always like a lot of conversation, decisions, and just like instinct on his part too. It's just like, because again, there's these improv moments happening, and you're grabbing those moments, and it's like go time. It was, that was always, it was never dull on that end of things.
Well, I can honestly say, I think the work all 4 of you did this year was just amazing. I love the cinematography in all these movies, and I really appreciate you taking the time to come out and talk to me about it.
So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.